Thanks for tuning in to Season 4 of Strange, Rare, and Peculiar Homeopathy Podcast, where homeopathy lives, breathes, and evolves with Denise Straiges and Alastair Gray. We'll be exploring modern practice, research, and philosophy, from Hahnemann's radical insights to today's breakthroughs and discoveries. Get ready for homeopathy woes, feedback from pros, and the more you knows.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, and good evening, and anyone out there that's eating right now and chewing food.
That would be me. I I was one bite away from being ready.
Do you know, folks, that I lovingly just made a cup of tea, and
It's
it's not just
delicious.
a couple of, it's not a Yorkshire tea bag in a cup. Let me tell you that. There's there's a number of steps. And do you know what my wife said to me as I poured her and handed her her beautiful cup of tea?
Oh, no, no, no. You're not going to say what I said. I said that's it
He said, "That's it."
because and the
Have you ever
reason
read
is
Bob Geldof's book about I think it's his autobiography. Is that it?
but I think I can explain. I can
Please,
explain.
officer, I can explain.
It's not how it sounds. It's just that because we because we now record in two separate locations, we don't get the second cup of tea. So we have a big pot. Do you have the pot right there with you?
Yeah, I've got the pot here, which I'm going to
Yeah,
bring to you.
see?
But you want some heat? You want a bit of heat?
So so you have the pot. So you made me a half cup of tea, and I'm thinking to myself, I've got
A half cup of
I
tea.
don't it was a half. I mean, look, you put more in. For anyone who can see, it's now at three quarters.
So I learned something this week, actually thanks to you, and I've never heard it before.
You
And
really
it
like it. You're talking
but I
about heat.
really like it. And because when you get to sort of halfway down a cup of tea and you just leave it because not the right temperature. Denise says, "Want some heat?" And to me, the first time I heard you say that, I went, "Oh, wow, thanks for looking up." And then you meant, "Would
I
you like me
said
to pour you
actually,
some more tea, darling?"
yeah. It's like a diner thing. It's like a lady named Laverne in a diner who would say, "Oh, hi, hon, you want a little heat?
Laverne.
Can I give you some heat?" Anyway,
Sure,
oh
sure,
my
darling.
goodness.
What would be the perfect response to that in New Jersey?
Um, I think whatever you're thinking would get you me too'd. So let's just leave that.
Oh, no.
Oh my gosh. Here we go. Let's uh let's talk homeopathy. Actually, it was good. There was one other thing though, one bit of I feel like I should have used a hairbrush earlier today. Sorry, people, if you're watching on video. There was something else about the week. Oh, I know. There are two things, two little things. One is I'm really curious how people felt about the last podcast where I got to record with Dr. Nancy O'Hara, who's a panda specialist. And I know that lots of people arrive in homeopathy because they've got some issue, either themselves or their family members, oftentimes kids, where the contemporary paradigm is not solving the problem. And pans
Yeah.
and pandas is like I mean, to me, it's just the disease of our time. And Dr. O'Hara is someone whose work I've because I've been researching so much around this. I'm super curious to hear from the medical folks who are understanding this. So anyway, I'm curious as to how folks maybe who are involved in homeopathy who maybe haven't been exposed to a lot of the cases of pans and pandas. I mean, this has become the bulk of what I'm seeing in my practice now. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Folks, how did it land?
Yeah, Al, you haven't listened to it yet. It just dropped today.
No, I
I'll be
haven't.
curious about Yeah. Because are you seeing lots of pans and pandas in your practice?
I don't. I refer them to you.
Oh, well, that explains it.
And the coughs as well.
And the coughs, yeah.
Folks, doing this 37 years, I've had one success once with a cough.
And you know why? I told you because first of all, lots of people think you're going to solve a cough based on the sound of the cough. I have clients send me audio recordings of their coughs all the time, and unless it's a Corallium rubrum uh, minute gun cough like that,
Do that again.
no, I can't. I'll choke to death. It's not going to help. But the thing with coughs is know your modalities. In fact, I have
See, folks, that's why
that's why
she
you
earns the
sent it to
big
me.
bucks.
Because in the front of one of from like 100 years ago, in the front of my Morrison's Red Book, the one that's the therapeutics book,
Yep.
I have in the front, I've got stickies. Let me see if I hold it. This is why I love being in our own offices. Yep, here it is. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a sticky note in
Yep,
there,
we got it.
and it's cough, better lying down, which is unusual. Phosphorus bryonia, euphrasia. It says euphrasia, eupatorium. I'm sure it's eupatorium, and argentum metallicum. But that is bizarre, better lying down. Most of the time, people they say, "Oh, I lay down, I have to get up, and I'm coughing, whatever." So know your positions. That for me is so helpful. So
Do you
lying
know
down
what?
or getting
That's
up.
straight up Bernninghausen homeopathy, that is.
I know. Well, he's the man.
And speaking of Bernninghausen, nice scarf you're wearing there. What is that?
Sophie scarf.
What's that?
All the
Sorry, a what?
knitters,
A what?
a Sophie scarf from Petite Knits. All the knitters out there, I want to know who's made their Sophie scarves. I've got a Sophie scarf and a Sophie shawl. Anyway,
It took me a year and a half to get my scarf.
I know. I know. I don't even know what to say. I'm really sorry. Um, but the going back to this cough thing,
Yep.
the other thing is, are people better from drinking something? Like, does it help? Sometimes a hot
Yeah.
drink or cold drink or exposure to air, like that Rumex cough, where I once had a guy he took his shirt and he would breathe through his shirt like that. So because if he breathed in the cool air
Mm.
outside, he would just go into a coughing fit. And he was a cyclist, as I recall, and he would wear like a neoprene face thing. This is like years before COVID. This is not like a,
Is
and he
that
would
like
wear
lycra or something?
neoprene, like scuba, like that.
Okay. All right. All right.
And over his face, and it had holes in it so that he didn't get cold air because he would cough. Rumex, which
Wow.
is also a delicious salad green. Although you were not happy that I planted two more of them this year.
Has anyone ever had the experience of planting a beautiful plant? It's got nice purple veins in the green. It's very attractive. And
Rumex,
then
look it
the
up.
next day you go back to the greenhouse and it's a triffid that's taken over and it takes
It's-
you 5 months to dig it out.
no,
Yeah, that's Rumex in a hothouse.
it's delicious. We have two. I like to have one in the greenhouse and one outside. And you wouldn't want to eat a whole salad of it.
Couldn't eat a
It's a
whole
little
one.
bit, what'd you say?
Couldn't eat a whole one.
Oh, okay, wait. We'll do a bad Al joke, which does make me laugh, but can we not tell this joke?
Oh, I don't know. You're the moral police today.
I the morality police, that would be me. Um, no, because people get offended easily these days, but I just think, well, and also this is no, we can't tell this joke because someone actually thought we can't tell the story.
No, no, not that story.
Not
Hey,
that.
I want to tell a story though, and then let's get on to the letter of the day.
But we have a whole bunch of things. Okay, go ahead. What's your story?
Well, because you cut me off, um,
Because you have the teapot. I
midstream
get a half cup of tea. You
last
get the whole pot.
podcast, not your last podcast, but my last podcast. You cut me off just as I was about to tell you about the story of Willem Klunker,
Oh,
right?
it's not that I
And
cut you off. I just said like a hoop de hoop bob
who
something.
the blah, 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 blah. And so I want to tell you a quick repertory story, and then we can get to whatever we're going to get to. And so back in 1992, I think 1992,
It was a good year for music.
92 was, oh, what? That's so interesting. Anyway, this is a reprint from 88. So I'm going to say back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Um, this interesting, I'm going to say Klunkel, got together with another physician called Bartel, and they realized that time was up. So Dr. Bartel and Klunker, um, decided that the time was nigh for the end of Ken's repertory because of the outrageous mistakes that were so prevalent and that everyone that used Ken's repertory was so
Yeah.
familiar with. And it didn't matter, but B. Jane would publish another Kent's repertory, and the same mistakes were in there. And some of those mistakes were mistakes of typos, just simply simple
Yeah.
typos. You'll appreciate like coccus cacti is very similar to cocculus.
Well, like my
Asarum,
Euphrasia eupatorium thing in
Euphrasia
my
eupatorium,
sure.
Asarum, and asafoetida.
Yep.
Just one letter different.
Yep.
Archnet, Archmet, Calinit, Calimet, or something. And so there were typos, but there were also mistranslations from provings to repertory language that
Right.
became really clear over the years and I think it happened where homeopaths would be relying on the repertory, prescribe a remedy, and it didn't work. And they go, why is that? And then maybe if they were really good homeopaths, they'd go back to the proving and realize that the proving said something slightly different to the
Yeah.
way it was translated into repertory language. And there's a famous, if I remember, there's a famous example in Lycopodium, which is, uh, it's not, which I can't remember. Let's leave it at that. Just an odd person moment. And uh, and so the mistakes were pronounced enough that busy, dedicated, committed homeopaths set to work, and they spent decades, decades going through systematically and correcting all of the mistakes, and then creating some interesting additions where they'd found proving information and adding it to Kent's repertory. And they got to the mind section, they got to the generals section, and they got to the sleeping and sexual symptoms section. It's interesting to put sleep and sexual symptoms together, but anyway.
It makes sense.
So they got to three
Wait,
sections.
you don't think that that makes sense?
No, I'm just saying that they got to three sections and then they
Okay.
published it and they called it the synthetic repertory.
Mm.
And then Roger Van Zandvoort wrote a computer program and pressed a button and did exactly what they did in 32 seconds,
Right.
thus making this life's work completely irrelevant, which is why no one's ever heard of it, which is why if there's a synthetic repertory anywhere, it is at the top left-hand corner, whoops, that direction, top left-hand corner of the shelf, and no one ever goes there because it's too hard to get the ladder to get up there and to all the rest of it. A lifetime's work gone with
Sad.
a few keystrokes from our good mate Van Zandvoort and Frederick Schroens. Wow. What do you think? How's my story?
Yeah, it's good.
All right. I
Yeah, it
just
was
saw
good.
you drifting and
That was a good
looking
story.
over to your right there, and
I was looking for I'm looking for the other thing we're going to talk about, but I've heard the story. Sorry. That wasn't very nice of me, was it?
move on.
Uh, well, we were talking about 1992 music. 1992 REM Automatic for the People.
That was all right. That part of that album was okay. Night Swimming
What's
in
your
particular.
I mean, it's one of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah, but it's also got a few other less impactful tunes on it. But it was also the worst. It was the time of music where the worst of drum beat and the worst of electronic pop music landed, and I
Yeah,
kind
but
of I
I
drifted
think
I drifted a bit.
unfair because while that might have been happening, and because you were into like house music and all that sort of business, that um, grunge, Nirvana was all happening at the same time. That's not drum machine.
No,
That's
I'm
Kurt
not saying
Cobain, babe.
nothing about Nirvana and um
Courtney Love. Were you a
uh,
fan of Hole?
what?
Courtney Love?
Yeah.
Hole?
So what's the word? I keep interrupting you when you.
Hole, that was her band.
Oh, right, got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Courtney.
Anyway, let's get back to the homeopathy business.
Sure.
Um,
Don't we have a Swedish listener?
we do, but there was something else though, a point of business that I was
Hello,
supposed to
Sweden.
say. Sorry?
Hello, Sweden.
Oh, we're supposed to do all the business things. Oh, we're supposed to introduce ourselves every time
Oh, my name is Alistair Gray. The news
from the
read
BBC.
from the BBC.
Yeah, and I'm Denise Straiges, and together we represent the Academy of Homeopathy Education, the Institute for the Advancement of Homeopathy.
And we need to do a poll to find out if, because we are the voices of the Strange, Rare, and Peculiar podcast, and is it time to actually go, we are neither strange, we are neither rare, and we're certainly not peculiar.
I mean,
And
don't
should
sell
we
your, don't
rebrand
sell
it?
yourself short.
And so should we be changing the podcast to
Homeopathy, it's a thing.
homeopathy? It's a thing.
It's a thing. We've got our Facebook group that I think hit like, I don't know, 10 or 15,000 participants. Yeah, I came up with that, I have to say.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
Um,
because when
you're
people,
also, do we need to also think about a third option? And given the fact that we were just referencing REM 1992,
yeah,
and that is homeopathy for the people.
no.
No, all right.
And
I
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you
hmm
why. Because what I like about homeopathy, it's a thing, is that what it is homeopathy, it's a thing. It's a complete system of medicine
hmm
that has within it a philosophical construct along with the therapeutic intervention. Those two things are meant to be used together. Once you separate them, then all bets are off. So by the time you start doing homeo detox, not a thing, right? Homeopathy, it's a thing. It has its laws, it has its rules. Other homeo detox, not a thing, right? Giving sarcodes as if they are vitamins, also not a thing. Fibonacci home accord, great marketing idea. People are making some cash. Shortcuts, always. People love a good shortcut. But homeopathy, it's a thing. So homeopathy for the people, even though like I'm 100% like this is the medicine for everyone, right? Not everyone should be practicing homeopathy untrained, trained me in mediocrely. Is that a word? Mediocrely? Yeah.
with mediocrity.
Having availed themselves of mediocre training and then practicing. When people say they're just trying out a medicine on a sick kid, like, I'm sorry, I'm an Italian mother. You don't do that. I'm going to come at people with my wooden spoon, right?
Yeah,
Anyway, okay.
yeah.
All right, that's what I
So
was
there's
supposed
the
to
poll.
do.
Love to hear your opinion, folks, because it's a strong possibility.
I know,
Now,
I like it. Do you think it's going to be like, I don't know, like a big deal from an algorithm standpoint to change the name?
I
Anyway,
don't know. It's like, if Microsoft decided to do a name change and they called themselves um, Gazelle, you
all
know,
right. Let's
didn't
just
work.
talk marketing for just like a minute though, because this takes me back to 1992. Okay. So 1992 was like the year. That was the year I moved from Manhattan
Yeah.
to Vermont.
hmm
And I was about to do a PhD in
hmm
clinical psych research. I took a year off in
Yeah.
between, and I had a job, which was actually an amazing job for this design firm, which now you would call branding. 'Cause they sort of got into that, but our main client was Burton Snowboards, and I was totally like, this was my jam in the 90s. The whole sports lifestyle thing, it was so much fun. I was like in my, mid 20s, totally living the life. Anyway, the reason I'm saying this is because one of the things about Burton snowboards is that they sort of turned this marketing stuff on its head a bit, like having multiple logos as opposed to just one. Like the the state of play was always like you need to have the same thing, multiple impressions. It always has to be the same way. And then they sort of came on the scene and just changed it up and like did really fun things and also had like all these different logos and incarnations of their brand name, but never changed the brand identity. And they changed snowboarding, brought it to the people. Because you used to not be able to snowboard in some mountains. Did you know that?
Well, I could never snowboard on any mountain.
No, you never did you?
No, it would have it fitted in with my perception of myself, except for
I
my
was choked to
reverse
death on my
goofiness.
teeth.
Yeah, I could not, would not. No.
No, but you had the hair for it.
Oh, I did. See, 1992 for me, that was a big year because it was the year of big pants. Uh, and I'm talking about pleated,
Your
Gap tan
khakis.
pants, khakis. Wow. And I found them boot cut,
I,
and I wore boots, sort of street boots with them.
I never saw anything like it. When we went through your closet and we did a Marie Kondo. Anything that didn't make me feel good needed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just went through and gave you a reboot. Anyway, we got to get back to talking about homeopathy. Oh my gosh.
All right, let's go to Sweden. Come on.
Let's go. Okay, so one of the things, though, other than the music of 1992, is that okay, so we got yeah, Sweden. Let's just go there because I forget the other thing I was supposed to say. So this listener writes, I'm gonna leave so it's a she writes Dear Stranger and Peculiar, which I really like. It's kind of like the Three Stooges, and like we'd need a sidekick. Um, but she's got a few questions, and they are it's aligned with case management and obstacles to cure. And I want to I want to wrap this in just a little bit with Herring's law. Spoiler alert, not a law,
Not a law.
not really a thing. There apparently we just learned in a meeting this morning that someone who's not a homeopath has created a chart of Herring's law and sharing it with people. This is it. Is anybody out there doing like the chemotherapy guide, like the if then what scenarios
Yeah.
for? I mean, this is just like insanity. Anyway, all right. So our Swedish friend says, my homeopath gives a dry dose and waits.
Fourth edition.
Yeah. I contact them for another consultation when the remedy has completed its action. They do not tell me what the substance is. I
Illegal
presume
and unethical.
I presume this means that they prescribe according to the fourth edition of the Organon. So
Correct.
correct. So fourth edition,
Except, yeah,
the dose and weight, but the not telling what the substance is. I mean, I think
there's a long precedent within homeopathy of doing that, but it's extremely paternalistic. And as you know, I think we all evolve, move forward. We just got to realize that we're not practicing in a vacuum, and the vacuum says that the consumer of the service have rights, and those, as awkward as it sounds, those consumer rights include knowing what they are taking, which means that what's in the
yeah.
bottle has got to be written on the bottle.
Well, totally. And there are a couple of things around this. So because I've had a
Full
few
stop.
yeah, I've had a few clients, not a few. I've had a lot of clients over the years that have transferred into my practice. And I'm sure people have had people that have transferred from my practice to yours. We trade them around. That's what happens. People
Mhm.
homeo shop. Sometimes we do a great job with people, sometimes not. So this is not a judgment at all. But one of the things that happens is sometimes people come and they don't know what they've taken.
Yeah.
And I never ask if somebody's coming to my practice, I don't want anybody else's notes because it doesn't really matter. But what I want to know is what remedies they've had and the dates. Because you can, if you see someone's remedy history, you learn a ton from that. And
Mhm.
so I'll tell you about a case. Actually, any of our students will know this case because I teach it when I teach phosphorus. You'll remember this case, Al. Do you remember the case we were on college tours with Ben. We were in Western Mass. And
Clark.
sorry, what?
Was it Clark?
No, no, no. This was when we were visiting Hampshire and we were we were in some hotel bar anyway. And I said, and we were about to go out to dinner, and I would not leave until I dealt with this case. And it was a kid that I wound up giving phosphorus to. Do you remember? And you were like, if this works, you've got to publish this case. So it's now 10 years later, and
Mhm.
I've never published it, but I've taught it a lot. But this was a case that this kid, we all know phosphorus for being this bubbly, like the bubbles in an effervescent drink, and the rubric kisses everybody and all of that business. It's a remedy near and dear to my heart. Anyway, this kid, though, he had a violent streak.
Mm.
And when they came to my office live, they came in when I still, saw all my clients in person. And this is when we were at WeWork, and we had our offices had like the glass window. So like it was frosted up to a certain point, and then it was, clear at the top. Anyway, this kid was in the hallway. He wouldn't come into the office, and his parents and a couple of other kids were in there, and the kid sitting on the floor, and he's banging his head against the glass door. And the parents were terrified. They're like, this kid is going to kill somebody someday. I mean, I just can't even imagine what it would be like. You've got a child and you are really concerned that they might have within them the capacity to do harm. It's got to be absolutely terrifying. Anyway, and they were the nicest family. And one of the things that I always loved about working with them is that they were very clear. Like sometimes we only want to tell like the best parts about ourselves or our kids or whatever, and also what we do to help them. When it's like the homeopath needs to hear the dirt, like just spill the tea, tell me what's wrong with this situation. Anyway, so this kid they'd been to another homeopath, and over the course of a couple of years, this kid had had a bunch of remedies and they didn't know any of them. And so I was starting from scratch. And who knows if I prescribed remedies that this kid had already had. Do you know what I mean? Or if
Yeah.
somebody if it's an inimical remedy to somebody, like you don't know. And so
Well, you can waste so much time,
so
you
much
know?
time. And here's a kid where they were really worried. This kid was the oldest, and they were worried about the fact that he could hurt, like their family with multiple kids. They were so worried he was going to hurt another kid. Anyway, turned out to be a phosphorus case, but that was not the first remedy I gave. It was the third, I think. It was the third. I gave hyoscyamus and then androctonus, right? Because he had this anger and rage, no remorse, which it did well. Actually, that helped. Hyoscyamus did nothing, not nothing, but whatever. But androctone, it helped a bit, but there was something about it that just didn't resolve. And then finally, phosphorus, and it came through this funny little. There's a rubric. Phosphorus is in the rubric. Delusions he is despised. And it was only after just like racking our brains, my brain with the parents' brains, thinking just like all of the ways in which this kid, expressed himself, that it constantly came up. He would say things like, you don't love me, you don't want me. Like all of these, he had so much simple language around like neglect. Yeah. Anyway, so the not telling the remedies, so they're like all sorts of things, including a power dynamic, that's like saying that the person doesn't need to know. Now, all that being said, have you, Al, ever when somebody's like super anxious and they look up their remedy and it's really hard for them? I've had a couple of clients over the years where I've said, "Do- I think maybe how do you feel about not knowing what you're taking? Especially sometimes like if a person's super anxious and maybe they are a homeopath or a student, and but I would only do it with permission. I don't think I would be able to do it
Yeah,
without.
totally. I
Would
mean,
you?
yeah, a quick cul-de-sac because for me, I've had a client, for example, I remember a woman that was an accountant that gave up accounting to become a house cleaner because she was so fastidious and
Right.
loved cleaning so much. And I gave carcinosin to her for her uh, depression. She came back And
You didn't give it for her depression. You gave it for the constellation of symptoms, which was inclusive of.
yeah, whatever language. And so, but not only did she report a glowing subjective experience, but her husband rang and said, "My God, thank you for giving me my wife back." And
Ah.
in the second consultation, she asked what the remedy was. And I really hesitated at that point. And I thought to myself, this is a make or break time because she's going to go and read it. And she asked what it was, and I told her, and I never saw her again. And she was horrified. And I just think, folks, that there are legitimate reasons why we might hesitate to give the name of the remedy. I mean, think about it, even if you're not even interested in homeopathy, to see something like hell written on a bottle or bell written on a bottle. Like, what is
Right.
that? What are the abbreviations? Homeopathy, we normalize it, but it's weird. And so, trying to describe to somebody what carcinosin is or syphilinum or anything like that is very, very difficult at times. So I understand the circumstances, but we do not live in a legal or ethical vacuum. And because of that, and because of the need to also balance our weird proclivities against the public good and what's the right thing to do, there's no possible way for me that I could ever ethically or legally not tell someone what they're taking. It's that people have
Well,
a human that there's a I mean, it comes under autonomy. It is human
yeah.
beings have a right to determine what happens to their bodies, and therefore they have a right to know.
And there, that would also, I mean, you have to assume that people are dispensing the remedy and not because a person can't, I don't know that, well, maybe a pharmacy would, maybe one of the pharmacies would
No, they're
send an
dispensing
on-label.
themselves.
Yeah, it would have to be
Yeah,
dispensing, which then has its own issues. Okay. So
yeah,
that,
not such a big deal in other parts of the world, but it is here for sure.
yeah.
So
Um,
so for me, there's anyway. We're
that
keep
brings
going
up a
with
lot
the
of feeling.
questions. What's
A
that?
lot of feel. I said we have a lot of feelings about that. So, so the other thing is, uh, about the homeopath gives a dry dose and weight, so fourth edition. So let's just have a look. Just there's so the Organon was written in 6 editions. The sixth and final edition was written, it was completed the year before Hahnemann died. So Hahnemann lived from 1755 to 1843, his birthday, next Friday, April 10th. Um, and so it was finished the year before he died, but then it wasn't published for a variety of reasons we've talked about before in our vindication of Melanie, but it wasn't
Oh,
published.
what?
Vindication.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Your dream.
it wasn't published for, is it 78 years?
Yep.
78 years after Hahnemann died. So it was published first in Germany and then it was published in the United States. Anywho, so, but with each edition, and I think this is really important, is that with each subsequent edition of the Organon, and then of course, chronic diseases slid in there in 1828, Hahnemann was making changes to mostly like the foundational philosophical premise doesn't change. Homeopathy is based on the laws of the universe. That doesn't change. But he was perfecting, and he uses the word perfecting, which of course makes sense given that he's a medical alchemist. And he's perfecting his preparation. We talked about that a couple weeks ago when we talked about trituration and then also the delivery. So, fourth edition, the pellet, give a dose on a sucrose tablet, give a dose and wait. The second, or the fifth edition, put the remedy in water. And the fifth edition, Hahnemann is now sort of grappling with the administration of remedies as relates to his deepening understanding of chronic diseases.
Hmm.
And then the sixth edition of the Organon, of course, is the introduction of the 50 millisomol potency, where he changes the ratio. So he starts with the 1 to 100, and then it goes on to be 1 to 50,000. Hahnemann didn't touch the X potency, that 1 to 10. That was herring. And that's like a whole other conversation. Anyway, but what I want to do is I want to just jump to something. She closes saying, is it less possible to, in quotes, cure chronic conditions when prescribing according to the fourth edition instead of the sixth? And I think that's a great question. But in the end, Hahnemann used all of the he used all of the potencies and all of the deliveries. He gave dry doses, he gave water doses, he gave centesimal, and he gave 50 millesimal. Hahnemann never used the decimal potencies, right? Now, what's interesting though, and this part about the fourth to the sixth edition and the question about how this person would reach out to her homeopath when the remedy has completed its action, it's there are there are a whole bunch of sort of case management things to think about. One of them is that when Hahnemann gets to the sixth edition, between the fifth and the sixth, there's this recognition that the repetition of the dose is going to move the healing process along. And Hahnemann is having these moments of how to, he wants rapid and gentle cure, capital C cure, and the emphasis being on the gentle part of it. So how to move a person through to healing without an aggravation of their state. And so one of the things that's really nice about the fifth and the sixth editions is this the putting the remedy in water means that you have a lot of flexibility in the delivery of the remedy in terms of frequency, because it's not wait until it's completed its action, but rather nudge the vital force closer to that healing. So you can modulate the dose. And also, and this is what I think is the most interesting and what we've really been focused on a lot since, when did I start working on experimenting with the 4 ounce thing? It was well before COVID, like maybe 2018. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So around 2018, I was studying deeply around sort of all of Hahnemann's delivery of the medicines. And I said to Al one day, why in America do we all, or at least the people that I knew, we used a 1 ounce dropper bottle for a 50 millesimal potency. And you
What
were
did
like,
I
I
say?
don't know what, huh?
What did I say?
You were like, I don't know why you people do that. You made some American crack, and it was fine. It was true. And you said no. Hahnemann, said use the 4 ounce bottle in order to move it through more quickly. And I was like, I know, I'm reading that here. But I think the reason I wanted to say that is because we learn from our teachers, right? We learn through a tradition, right? And so I did what the people I learned from did in the clinic where I worked did, which was we worked with a 1 ounce bottle, dropper bottle, and we did between 1 and 7 drops. That was like, it. And right. And so, um, yeah. So so then I said, okay, well, I'm just going to do exactly what Hahnemann did. I'm going to like learn it in my bones and I'm going to
Yep.
try to replicate it. And then I realized, so then COVID comes along and we had these experiences where people were in these incredibly acute respiratory distress states. And remember 2020, there's no medical assistance. We're dealing with people in New York City, ground zero for COVID. People are getting turned away by ambulances when they've got O2 sats of 82, right? I think that was the lowest that we heard that somebody wasn't taken. So we were like on our own over here, which was terrifying. And we had clients who were sort of working out what to do with the repetition of their remedy because they knew that when they were in distress, they would take a sip of the preparation and they would feel better. But if they did it too frequently, they would feel worse. And they worked out these giant, we had a woman who was using like a gallon of water that she would put a remedy in so that she could sip it frequently. And it was just like one of those things where you bang your hand on your head and go, oh, right. When Hahnemann's talking about the distribution of the remedy, the operative agent is water.
Yeah.
And so multiple or giant dilutions become a way to modulate a dose. And so when this person is asking about, is it less possible to cure according to fourth edition or sixth, I don't think it matters.
No.
I
I,
right?
I, if I could just weigh in, I think, in the conversations that I've had, when I did Fireside this week, there was a good distribution of students, and we were having a conversation very similar to this. And it's such a simple conversation because I say, who's had one dry dose and waited and it's been useful and, and resolved symptoms? And a few hands go up. Great.
Yep.
All right. Who's had repeated doses of a centesimal, changing the remedy each time? And a few hands go up. Oh, great. Who's used 50 millisimoles? And the hands go up. And so therefore, with clarity that all of those methods work, therefore it's about identifying what are the advantages and disadvantages of each, and then playing to the strengths and playing
Yep.
to the advantages of whatever you select, given the circumstances.
Yep.
Because if it's a cow, or if it's a child, or if it's a
How?
what?
How? Like moo?
Yeah, if you're prescribing for a chicken or a llama, not a Dalai Lama, but a llama,
A llama, right.
then
You
because
could
llamas
prescribe for a Dalai Lama.
they get these boils. It
Llamas
doesn't
do.
matter. The point is that there will be a potency scale and a style of prescribing or dispensing that has advantages in that situation. And that's it. And with experience and experiment and observation, then you'll work it out. And so I think it's really just getting clear on the advantages and disadvantages of the fourth, which are a lot, the disadvantages of the fifth, which are few, and the disadvantages of the sixth, I can't think of any.
Yep.
And that's what we end up with.
I would say in my cases of complex autoimmunity, it would be really rare that I would start a case with a fourth edition prescription,
Me too.
if ever.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that I won't give a dry dose at various points in the management of the case.
Mm.
And there are some people that do well with dry doses and not water doses. So there's going to be individuality to it. I mean, I just took a remedy this week and I took one dry dose
You did too.
of a 30C because of a variety of reasons
Mm.
that made perfect sense. And it was based on chronic symptoms. It wasn't something acute. So,
But I think it's really important because, in a way, the conversation we're having is around potency, but it's not really
yeah,
because the conversation about potency is always about case management. And
always,
so it's
always.
it's you never ever want to be a part of painting yourself into a corner. You
See,
know,
that's the expression you use that I love because when there sometimes we'll have students who have come from, their experience in homeopathy where they have a beloved practitioner, or maybe they've come from another school that it works with the fourth edition, and they're like, why are you only doing sixth edition prescribing? And what we'll often say is that in managing a teaching clinic, to give a fourth edition prescription for a chronic case is going to be harder for a student to manage
yep.
because as you say, they paint themselves into a corner. Because once you give that dose, you've got to, what is the expression? You don't hit a moving golf ball,
Oh, I mean that's one of the expressions. It's very difficult to hit a rolling golf ball, but
right?
the I think the better analogy is that it's as if with a good Kintian prescription that you're able to lift that person and put them in Hawaii on a really big wave with lots of energy behind it,
Yeah.
and it's heading towards the shore. And if you are a little off, perhaps with your potency or with the remedy itself, and there's a reaction, either an aggravation or return of an odd symptom or a
Yeah.
proving symptom, you're
Whew.
buggered because there's nothing you can do
Well, I
except
mean, you can do like there's some things.
antidote. No.
Yeah, there's no that is not a thing.
Yeah.
But emergency kind of rescue doses, giant dilutions, changing the potency. I mean, you can, but sometimes people can really have a bad trip.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've talked about this before. Like, but I think since we have worked really closely in the modulation of a 50 millisimole potency, there's less concern
I want
about.
flexibility. I want room to
Yeah,
move. I want to
yeah,
be able to do ninja moves.
totally.
And and the last thing you want as a prescriber is to not be able to act as you want to manage a case really well.
You just brought up a very good example, ninja. So if you're going to say ninja moves, then what's the opposite of a ninja?
I'm going to say, because I can read your mind, a pirate.
A pirate.
But
So,
actually, that's not true.
okay,
Because the
but in
opposite
this
of a ninja is an anti-ninja.
Okay, but if we're gonna we go by analogy, right? We not this is not isopathy, this is homeopathy. It's a thing. So if we I often will use the analogy with the students, pirate versus ninja, and I have graphics for this, right? Pirates, it's clunky, too many accessories, makes a lot of noise, right? The parrot squawking, like it's a whole bunch of things, and then the ninja, right? Well, a lot of what's happening in homeopathy today is there's a lot of pirate moves, like this Fibonacci homochord. I mean, it's just it comes up all the time now. We are seeing so many clients that have been like buggered by this, buggered. People are, it's like left, right, and center. And
Hilarious hearing you say that word.
oh, I know. See, so you rub off on me sometimes.
Uh,
Um, And anyway, but that's like a pirate move. You know, do you want to be a pirate or a ninja? Do you want to like throw everything in? Oh, okay, here's a great example. So on Saturdays after the farmer's market, we go to the juice bar and we get a juice.
mm,
And so a
mm.
couple weeks ago, I got my usual, which is carrot, pineapple, ginger. And Al got a juice that looked like and tasted like mud. It had too
It-
much in it,
well, it was a liver revival.
but it was brown and it was like,
It tasted like cardboard and it was brown. It had
it-
lots of beet in it. Look, the ingredients are amazing,
yeah.
but by God, it wasn't a great experience.
No, whereas mine, perfectly curated, was delicious. And you ordered mine, you got my menu
No, I want what
last
you've
week.
got. I
Yeah,
want what
because
she's having.
it's like pirate versus ninja. It's pirate. It's just like too many things. It's just too much going
Pirates can
on.
be useful boarding a quarry, boarding another ship. You want
Sure.
a cutlass in your hand and a pirate beside you when you're going in.
I
But
don't
if,
know. I want the ninja. They don't even know you're coming.
well, exactly.
Meow.
You know, do that noise again. What? That's the
Meow.
ninja noise.
That's my ninja noise. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
We have another meeting in 4 minutes, which means that we got to one third of what we needed to do.
Did we finish
Um,
this letter, this lovely missive from Sweden?
No, I mean, set us up for a whole episode. We were going to talk more repertory, but all right, one more thing. Yeah, we have 4 minutes. So there's another question. How do you know when a remedy has completed its action?
Yeah, that's the critical part of fourth edition prescribing.
Yeah.
And essentially, you got to draw it and you need some numbers. Or at least that's always helped. And so, if you can get a gauge or a feel for the intensity of the problem that the person's got, and then you prescribe, when the symptoms are heading back towards that place, 4 or 5 or 6 weeks or 10 weeks later, that's the time to hit it again.
Hmm.
And so that's, a simple diagram of time and intensity. That's the x-axis and the y-axis. When the symptoms are trending towards, you don't want to have people wait for that extra 2 weeks in a chronic case while their migraines get back to where they were 6 weeks ago before your beautiful remedy. You don't need that. But when the symptoms are the same and they're heading back, hit it again.
The thing is, sometimes hard to judge that.
Hard to judge. Really
It's
hard to
easy.
judge.
Yep, it's hard to judge. And it's hard, like when a person has really good vitality, that's a much easier thing because they're not. Okay, I'll give you another example really quickly, which is I was just teaching this week uh, palliative and end of life care. And oh, that was the other thing I was supposed to talk about is the upcoming course. We'll do it next time. Anyway, but one of the things that I was talking about is how when it comes to pain management at the end of life,
Mm,
the what the allopaths will talk about, and it's really important for everybody to understand, is you have to stay ahead of the pain
mm,
because the adaptive process in the body as it's really depleted and as it's going into that sort of shutting down at the end of life means that if a person gets behind the pain, then it can be harder and harder to get them out of that pain cycle because they are unable to metabolize the medicine in the same way. It's not moving through the body in the same way, and therefore a person can wind up with some significant challenges. Similarly, when you've got a person who has a deep, who's got, and I always view things through the lens of the challenging autoimmune clients. You, if you let them sort of tank and get back to baseline, it's a lot to bring back, especially when there are a lot of complex symptoms. And because symptoms move around a lot with a lot of autoimmune diagnoses, you don't want a person to get into a full flare,
Mm.
because then you're faced with the question of, is it acute or is it chronic? Can I treat this with a deep chronic remedy? And you've got to move slowly, and the inclination can be to do it quickly, in which case you might be using a remedy that might not benefit the case in the long term. So the posology choice is also wrapped up in the vitality of the client as well as their pathology. All right. The people are in the waiting room for the next meeting. Strange, rare, and peculiar. He's got his button up. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll do it again. We'll do it
See you
again
next time,
soon.
folks.
Yeah. See ya.
Got a packed schedule, but still dreaming of becoming a homeopath? AHE's part-time professional program brings real-time classes, live clinical training, and a full professional curriculum, all 100% online. It's rigorous. It's legit. And yes, it's built for people who have jobs, kids, lives, and a whole lot of ambition. Start your journey to licensure without hitting pause on your life. Visit ahe.online and take the first step.